Good morning, everybody. How are you doing? Welcome, everybody, to the second day of the 9th Annual Genocide and Human Rights Conference. Yesterday was an amazing day, if you were here. We covered topics concerning interrupting genocide through reparation and retrieval, genocide violation of cultural integrity in contemporary Burundian literature, the role of social media in preventing genocide, the genocide of indigenous peoples of Brazil in the context of civil military dictatorship, and the community's responsibility during genocide. We had an amazing message from USG Alice Mretu, Special Advisor to the UN Secretary General on Genocide Prevention, and inspiring and historic expose and discussion about Haiti and the Haitian Revolution and America's crimes against Haiti. That was followed by genocide prevention and building trust through dance. And then we had an amazing presentation by students who eloquently recounted their experiences on their inaugural trip to Burundi. Let's give all our speakers from yesterday another round of applause. And our second day is going to be another amazing day. So let's get started. Our first speaker, Safa Musa, is from Darfur, Sudan, and currently lives in South Africa. Musa graduated with a master's degree in business administration from the Cape Peninsula University of Technology in South Africa. Currently, she assists the Center for African Study of Violence and Reconciliation with their trauma reconciliation project in order to reach the Darfurian community and promote health interventions after genocide in Darfur. Being one of the luckiest girls to survive during the genocide in Darfur and making it safely to South Africa. Please, everyone, just welcome Safa Musa. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah, go ahead. We can hear you. Thank you. Good morning. Good
Okay.
afternoon. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to join the conference of 9th annuals on genocide and human rights in Africa and diaspora. So my topic today is about education and strengthening of state institutions as a comprehensive strategy to prevent genocide. So it is a belief that to prevent genocide through education is a primary component. And some studies show that the subject of genocide is not sufficiently covered in many countries. And this is one of the reasons that I chose the topic. The case study today will be Darfur, Sudan. Through this presentation, how do I move to the next slide? Yes, I will be covering the current situation in Darfur and current transitional justice in Sudan. I will also be covering the genocide prevention and conflicts of interest, the genocide education and African Union influence on genocide prevention, and the genocide education critical and concern, the challenge of the implementation of genocide and educational program. And finally, I will recommend some framework recommendation for the genocide prevention. Yes. So through past studies, they have shown that as I mentioned, that there's no sufficient education that's been covered genocide in many countries, and this raises the question of why not many countries including the genocide in their educational system, and is it due to the lack of the resources or the lack of understanding and knowledge of the history of the genocide? So in this, through this study, I will evaluate if Sudan has covered some measurement, provided some measurement to give to prevent education, to prevent genocide. And then I will give some examples that shows that some countries have used the educational system to prevent genocide. And then I will present some recommendations as I have mentioned in the previous slide. The historical background of Sudan, it is in 1996 was Sudan is independent from British, and then in 1983 then it was a conflict in South Sudan, and then in 1998 was a political or military coup that brought al-Bashir to the power. So after resizing the power by military coup, then that brought a civil war in Darfur, in southern part of Sudan. And then in 2003, the genocide has happened in Sudan, in Sudan Darfur region, and many other part of the countries. So a massive campaign of ethnic cleaning included rape, torture, and enforced disappearance. So this genocide started in the villages, but the root cause of the problem is still very complex, or unknown. And then the primary perpetrators of the killing are from the Arab, and then the main civilians that have been affected by this genocide are African. So I remember when everybody was trying to run from the genocide, and then that was in 2003, as I mentioned, but we didn't know what was happening. People didn't have a source of media to know what is happening around Darfur for the different community. So we will hear torture, gunshots through, people that riding camels or horses or by cars or air. And then, not at least like ordinary citizens knew what happening there. So as we run, then we sing all together. I was very young, but I can remember. So we will sing and we'll say like, Duingia agigi lelba, Duingia agigi lelba, Saydere aridigela nakarauko, Baladine nasabarulinga, Baladine nasabarulinga. So this song means, because we don't know what happened, so we sing like my father, my mother, my sister and brother, don't ask me why I'm running, because I don't know. maybe some part of the world is now collapsing or destroying. So we will repeat the song and run together, and then some of us has to separate from their families. Like myself, I'm separated. My mother and my other siblings, they ran through different direction. Myself and my father, they went through different direction, and we were just trying to find to run in the directions that we think is safer. So I think experienced some problem of moving from slide to another. I don't know if can we go
Yes,
to the
Safa, you can just next slide so that we know when to move to the next slide, okay? So when you finish one slide, you can just say next slide.
Okay, perfect. So we can on 25, a comprehensive peace agreement has happened between SPLM, that is Sudanese People's Liberation Movement, ending the war that is begun since the independence in 1955. Can you move to the next slide, please? And then in 2011, Sudan has separated and South Sudan has become an independent country. And then in 2019, another revolution has started demanding the departure of al-Bashir regime. And then in 2020, there was a peace agreement deal that's been done between armed struggles and government, militia and civilian leaders. So, and then in 2021, again in October, another military coup has happened in Sudan. Next. So continuing the background of Sudan, Sudan has population divided into two. So 97% of the population are Black, Indigenous African, and 3% are Arab. And then the country is also governed by Islamic law. So this is raising the question for me of how can a country with 97% of indigenous African be recognized, and is the heart of Africa, be recognized as an Arabic country. So this happened when British colony left Sudan. Then they handed power to the Arabic minority, which lives in the northern Sudan, next to the Egypt, and since then, the war has begun. As I say, the root causes are very complex, and then some of the roots we still don't know, but I will cover some of them, which is the identity crisis. The next slide. So political force in Sudan, since independence, has established a racial discriminatory institute that makes civil society, civil violence in Sudan and conflicts of identity. In terms of languages, so in Sudan, as a Black African, I'm not allowed to be, my name to be an African name. So I have another name, Taye, so that means Safa, purity in English, is direct translation. So even if we have an African name, by the time we get to the school, then we have to change from African to Arabic, and then we have to speak Arabic language. If you don't speak it, then you will be beaten up to speak the language. the other conflict that we had is like a media. So in media, you cannot present, you cannot find in Sudanese media, if you are Black, you will not find a Black person or a Black girl in the TV unless you polish your skin or you done some surgery to become Arabic or to become a white or to change the way they want Sudan to look like. So that has created a conflict of identity. So this is one of the problem that is happening in Sudan. And religious also, the religious problem, Sudan is diverse. Before 2011, the South Sudan was one country, was just Sudan. And most of the people from South Sudan are Christian, but the country is being ruled by Islamic law. So this is discriminating the other religions in terms of applying Islamic law to everybody in Sudan. And also in terms of culture, if you practice your culture publicly, that is not acceptable. We had to, like, simple stuff as a wedding, as a those kind of stuff, we have to do it in Arabic way, or we are not allowed to practice to be who we are in Sudan, even though we are the Africans, the indigenous in Sudan. Next. So what is going on now, the current situation in Sudan, in Darfur? So after 2 decades of conflicts, it caused huge environmental and humanitarian challenges. Many people, millions of people living in IDP camps. Where there are more than 1.5 IDP camps across Sudan, and those camps are very overcrowded and they are very dangerous because Janjaweed militia, those are the militia that has been created by the government to commit genocide. So they have an easier access to the camps, and there's no one taking in charge of justice and the security. So anything can happen anytime to those people that live in the camp. So every holiday I had to go back to the camp, Darfur, to volunteer as a teacher, and then you will find that it's not safe even for the people who want to provide humanitarian services to the community. Yeah, next. Current transitional justice in Sudan. Next. I think I have covered current transitional justice in Sudan. So the current transitional justice in Sudan has been posed a lot of challenge, and because achieving peace is not in the best interest of the militia government, and so any effort to achieve the peace, economic stability, the development should rest in the ground of the peace. So Sudan's militia and Janjaweed, they feel threatened by the educational system that could be provided and focus on the genocide prevention. And then this leads to a lot of crises, like a social crisis, and create an environment that the serious humanitarian problem happened, and a lot of other, atrocities around the region that is happening every day continuously. So because now the military government is sharing a power with a civilian leader, and then it's just on their face, but in the ground, they're actually threatened by the laws that can help the genocide to be stopped, and because they will be prosecuted, and that is not in their best interest. Next. So more countries are more receiving the value of the education, or the value of to teach the history of human rights, particularly the right of refugee and the right of internally displaced people. So Sudan is yet to implement any form of the measurement that can build the capacity of Sudanese institutions and protect the crime or crime against humanity. So the situation is actually worsening after transitional justice. So the situation is not going any better. The military is sharing power, as I said before, and then they now want to establish another regime that is same as a Bashir's regime, and they will sit and talk about the peace agreements, and then the next day they will do something else. And also the civilian doesn't have any power. They don't have any power they will have to just write things and agree on the paper, but they don't have any power to implement. And this is also affecting the children recruitment. There's a lot of children that is being recruited in Sudan to be a part of Janjaweed, that is now called Armed Support System, and it's a part of the military now. And they're committing those crimes, humanitarian crimes across Sudan. It's not just in Darfur. Next. So the shortage of the capacity that that civilian leaders face, it helps the military government to achieve their aims, and then the continuous effort and measurement in short and a long time in a local, international, and global level will really help Sudan to be from one level to another, and also to have just a right of independent media, and reinforce like civil society, and then to protect humanitarian laws. So this is very important that included in educational system of Sudan. Next. So the African Union, the problem of African Union is that they are suffering from horrendous dearth of resource. So they don't have enough resource to force political parties or political government in Africa to stop genocide. So that is a disadvantage, or what African Union lacks. So this is this according to the study that is being done. Next. So despite the critical role of education, education teachers, education practitioners, they face many challenges in Sudan. They face many challenges in Sudan to be able to provide any sort of history about the genocide. So they will. There is a strict policy that they don't have to, they will not be able to ask certain questions, certain political questions, or answer certain political questions, whether you are a student or a teacher. So that is some of the challenge that Sudan is facing currently. And the challenge to the implementation of genocide and educational program in Darfur, as I said in the previous slides, is government interference. So a government is negatively interfering in the system of education, and the government is actually selecting what system can be taught at the school, and what systems that cannot be included to the education system. The history is being, they will select what history of Sudan, of genocide, of crisis that they want. People from other part of Sudan, they don't know anything of what's happening in Darfur or Nuba Mountain or Blue Nile. They don't know what is happening. They don't know the amount of the crime, the humanitarian crimes that is happening in those regions. Because the government owns the media, we don't have independent media. So, and then it will guide on what to put in the education system, like in the basic curriculum, what will be included and what will not be included. And I mentioned like teachers will be restricted on what to teach or what question to answer regarding political questions. And the stigma of is a fear of stigma. So as a teacher, we will be asked not to even involve in a discussion. So I was teaching in Nifasha Kam and Kapkabia Kam. So if you answer political questions, then you will be charged, or you will be you will be kidnapped. So then people fear to talk about anything that is happening. Basically, everybody is just looking. People are not talking about the stuff that is happening, and the denial of the genocide. So the biggest challenge that educators face is to deny, and the denial is considered that it is a final stage of genocide prevention, and if it's not addressed, then it will lead to the future genocide, that would future humanitarian crimes that to continue happening. And as we see this is happening in Sudan, they will agree on there will be a peace agreement, and then right after the peace agreement or during the peace agreement, you will see that actually the genocide still continues, because they don't mention it, they don't teach, they don't include it in their negotiations when they negotiate for the peace of Sudan. They basically deny what is going on in Sudan. The trauma also plays role, and I saw some students that when we talk, not just some students, like when I teach my siblings about what has happened, they will not be interested. They will not be, or they will fear that this will happen again. For those who did not born after the genocide, and some of them they cannot handle, because a lot of people lost almost everybody in their family. So the past trauma is also playing a big role in letting a student drop out the school in Sudan. So when the education system, when you go to, this is just going back to the previous slide, So if you go to the camp in Sudan, you will find that the schools are overcrowded and the teachers are not from the cities. So you will find the teachers like myself, I can only facilitate with the capacity building, writing and thus. So when we discussed what is happening, then this is a problem that we face. Like people who lost their fathers, they will not want to hear about it, and if you move to more like city, then there we get restricted. So Sudan, in Darfur, we have camps, and then we still have cities like Abqaiq, Sipil Fashir, and Niala. Those are the cities. And so the education system is even different from the city and from the camps. Next. So despite the challenge that many countries face when establishing educational system to prevent genocide, there are some countries that have been successful. And one of those countries are Rwanda, and United States, South Africa, China, and they incorporated the Holocaust curriculum in their education system, and you know they are being very successful in that. This is according to the studies done by Adam. Next. In this section, I will talk about the few recommendations that I have provided to help to stop genocide in Sudan, and also to help to build the capacity of the national institutions of Sudan. So creating society that is resilient to the violence and atrocity crime, it will help in long time, and also will enroot the discriminatory attitudes and injustice. So teach about past violence also. It will help to stop the violation of human rights, and then promoting the educational program and project is also good to prevent genocide, which is something that.
Yes, we have about 1 minute left. So
1 minute, okay. Can you go to? Okay, so I will just read this. So it's ethical commitment and participating in international regional network, education network, and then security force and government. We need to include also the educational system on the security force and the government officials. And then we need to involve in political and financial support to implement the Pan-Africa in Sudan. Can we move to next slide? This is the education and memory. So in Argentina, their prime minister has created an educational program, so to help to prevent genocide and to promote teachings of past history. So that is included in their curriculum. Next. So for Sudan, the recommendation is to declare the National Day remembrance of past event and create opportunity and awarenesses about the event and the genocide that has happened, and to honor the victims. Next. So in conclusion, Sudan should promote educational initiatives and textbooks, materials with the view of ensuring the functional and comprehensive account of past atrocity crimes, and then such as initiative that can be part of the history course from in a form of human rights or the global citizenship education. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm going to take a moment to reference. Is there any questions or a comment in the chat or from the audience? Thank you so much for that amazing presentation. We have one comment. Yes.
Greetings. That was a beautiful presentation you just did. I want to thank you. You kept saying that you're not quite sure why the genocide happened. And I would ask you to add a book by Ali Mazrui on the Africans. And in the introduction of that book, it talks about what happened as it relates to what's really going on with us. Organized chaos, right? You said 97% of the people are Black or African, and yet the 3% Arab have managed to colonize your entire everything. That's really very sad. So this issue is really an issue of decolonization and stemming from independence. Stemming from that British colonial rule. And then what they did was to put minority tribes in power and to create organized chaos. So you're feeling the remnants of that. You also mentioned the education focusing on conflict prevention and how hard it is for the children to learn because you have to go to school and speak in Arabic. How insulting, you know, for an African nation to, and if the people are not Arabic, to have to speak in that way. So part of this, it sounds to me like it's really a decolonization that needs to happen of the educational system, where we begin to have an African-centered curriculum, where we learn the true history of the impact that you're still manifesting under colonialism. So I think I had a question. You mentioned Argentina, and that's kind of ironic. And you said they have an education memory program. So I would love to learn a little bit more about that, because Argentina is also eliminating Black people. So I really think you did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will start with your question of Argentina. So basically, this is the research. So because I'm not from Argentina, so this is basically the book I read on the countries that have been implemented. And as I have mentioned in my first, in a table of contents, that I will be showing examples of the countries that have implemented the system. So I have read some articles that I listed below. And from this article, Argentina is one of the countries that I found that they have put the measurement of educational system to prevent the crime against humanity. Also, to your first comment that when you said, I mentioned about part of this the reasons that genocide happened are still unknown. For me, as a Darfurian, I could assume many things. And then when I read the books, I read the report from United Nations, and then I read the books in Arabic, they are not telling the truth, because I was there when it happened. Some of them, they will say that it is ethnical, or it is ethnic groups who fight together, and other will say the rebels. There will never be a problem between the ethnic groups of Darfur. We are so many of us, more than 100 ethnic groups, and over 80,000 languages are African languages. And we never had one particular group who is attacking others. So this is a government militia. And the other thing is that when, this is what I read the report, but when you see on Sudanese media, they will say that the rebels of Darfur are the one committing the crime. And for me, it could be many things. It could be Darfur is very rich. They could want to dominate the resources. One.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, there's a couple more comments. So maybe as you continue to talk, you can add their comments in. You okay with that?
Can you repeat that, please?
There's a couple more comments. And so I'm going to
Okay.
add them into the conversation so that we can do the next
Presentation.
But hold on a second.
Okay. So should I stop now and then?
Hi, you really did a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. Mine is a very quick observation, and I just could not let it go because I saw that in your examples, the United States of America is included as one of the countries that have included genocide in their curriculum. And I completely disagree with that statement. Because we are living in a country where we have a significant number of people who deny the happening of the Holocaust. So, and the thing, and I am Ethiopian, so definitely getting research, papers from the other part of the world, we definitely have access to those kind of resources. But I really encourage, diving in and looking at, because everything shifts with politics, and what is personal is political as well. So it's very important to pay attention to the source of those research, because it could be misleading. At the face value, that's what we see, and we always champion, oh yeah, the US is doing something, but really not. So
I really appreciate it.
Say that.
I really appreciate it.
Time. So, all right, Doctor.
You one last comment. One last quick comment off of.
This question says, we are starting to push back on remembrance in the US. Is there discussion or research on ensuring memory doesn't transform shame into anger and indignation and rewriting of history?
Can you repeat that, please?
We are starting to see pushback on remembrance in the US. Is there discussion or research on ensuring memory doesn't transform shame into anger and indignation and rewriting of history?
I'm not sure if there is a research about that. I haven't found the research on that. But I would like to thank you the comments that I have got about the sources. So this is actually something that I also face when I talk to Sudanese that are not from Darfur, and then they will say that, okay, this is what is happening in Darfur, and this is what this government is doing for Darfur, and this is the evidence. So as a Darfurian, and then I deny that. So I really appreciate your comment on that, and it's also, it will help me to next time when I'm researching to look deeper and deeper on the